So I want to turn to our Metroid questions because we have this first one from Dean who asks, do you see Prime 4 having a more Breath of the Wild open world setting, or do you think they'll stick to the planet by planet exploration like Prime 3? So we have the trailer up on the screen for Prime 4 now, which very much just looks like the intro. Samus has just landed on this planet. She maybe is about to lose all her powers or just did. But Brian, what direction do you think they're going to go?
I think the sort of the latter. I think like this still has to be a Metroidvania. I hate calling Metroid games a Metroidvania, but I have to do it.
Mhm.
And so like I'm not as interested in the idea of like a sort of gigantic Breath of the Wild style open world. I like the sort of tighter, more confined designs in some of the previous games. One thing I do hope that they don't do is what they did in Metroid Prime Hunters, which is you defeat a boss, it shows you a cutscene of the planet exploding, and then you have to go back to that planet to do other missions
Yeah.
because that makes no sense.
Yeah, it's terrible.
Yeah.
What do you think, Jada?
I
I would absolutely hate Metroid Prime 4 if it went open world. I think it would completely ruin the experience. I think Metroid Prime 4 does best, or Metroid Prime and Metroid just in general does best when you are in these tense situations in maybe not always like these very small corridors, but like that, like Metroid does have a little bit of that kind of shock, surprise, almost horror element where it's like, hey, I've got to escape from this area, this room in 30 seconds, or the bombs go off in this room, whatever, those types of things. Like there's this like these tense situations, and I think if you go full open world with the Metroid Prime game, like I think you lose a lot of that. And like that's not to say they can't have these wide swathing areas like we've gotten in Prime in the past. I hope we still have those because there's some really great looking vistas that the team puts together in these games. I would nothing would turn me off of Metroid Prime 4 than them to announce that it is Breath of the Wild open world style. I would just be like,
Mm.
all right, well, guess I'm just waiting for Metroid on the next Dread sequel,
Hmm.
whatever that one's gonna
Mhm.
be. Like,
Yeah, I agree. I think this game is going to be like Metroid Prime 1, honestly.
me
I
too.
think
I hope so.
it's going to be classic Metroid but in 3D. I think there are some open world games like take the Tomb Raider reboots that are very tight because of how they
Yes.
segment their gameplay, right? They have an overworld where you do some stuff like hunting and you unlock things and figure out how to get into dungeons, but then you go into this sort of Zelda temples and you try to solve the puzzles. And so the actual meat of a game like Tomb Raider is still the tomb raiding, right? Like
Yeah.
and by the way, the bonus tombs are more interesting than any of the core gameplay in that game,
The
in those
shrines.
games. Yeah, the shrines basically. But
Mm.
what I've seen a couple of games really innovate with open world elements that were part of the sort of lineup of levels rather than the center point of the
Hmm.
experience, right? So unlike an Assassin's Creed, you've seen games like Call of Duty Black Ops 6 that have one section that's an open world area where you jump into a car and you can take out different like enemy camps and stuff.
Mhm.
Uncharted has done something like that where you have a boat hub where you explore.
Yep.
I would love to see something like that where maybe part of the mission is to maybe get the pieces of her spaceship back together or get spare parts and like explore an open world area. But I wouldn't want the entire game to be like what Halo Infinite did,
Yeah,
right?
the
Where
the
Yeah.
Mhm.
the
yeah.
modern God of War games do that pretty well. I think like we've
Mhm.
always sort of like called it
Mm.
wide linear. Like I don't think there is like a
Mm-hmm.
specific term for what that is, but like I love that exact concept pair. Like the sort of
Open
like
zone.
you're funneled through very specific, very bespoke areas, and then all of a sudden it opens up for a while, and like that's
Yeah.
basically what Phendrana felt like the first time you walked into that area in
Yes.
Metroid Prime. It
Mhm.
was, and
Mhm.
maybe it wasn't right because it was actually pretty much there was
Mhm.
specific places you had to go and specific orders, but you didn't know that when you first walked in. When you first walked in, you were just hit with this vast openness, this incredible music, flurries of snow getting
Mm-hmm.
stuck to your visor, and so I think there's a lot of that they can pick back up on without going full open world and still giving you that feeling of like I'm on a new planet, I'm in a new place. It's scary and exciting and beautiful. I don't know where to go first or where to go last or next or whatever, but let's take our first steps out there. So I hope that that's the kind of feeling they recapture, but also still making it like a very not very linear, but like this is what I have to do next. I just unlock this thing that opens this door and this door and this door. Let's go.
I want to step into a planet that has 10 doors and I don't know which one leads to what. And
Mhm.
there is a specific order I have to do them in, but I can go through all of them to figure out what that is. That's what Metroid is. And we don't get really anything else like that in the industry besides the Metroid series anymore. There's a few that do it. Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown, we have raved about on this show, but there's not going to be a sequel to that. Like, it's this style of game is so rare nowadays, and I think there's a lot of reasons for it. I think one is they're really, really dang hard to design. These are complicated things and worlds to put together that Nintendo and Retro have been the most successful at it, and a few others along the way have done really nice jobs too. And you even used to get something like that in a Zelda dungeon, but you don't
Yeah.
even get that anymore with the direction Zelda dungeons have gone the last decade. So I just want it to be Prime 1, but a new planet. That is the best case scenario, not because I don't think series can evolve or change over time, but because Metroid's really the only one delivering this experience to us anymore. And I think that it's really special. And Metroid is a series that I've not always been in love with. Dread was really the one that finally got me over the hump of being super into it, and I've since gone back and played Zero Mission and played Super Metroid and played Prime 1 and 2, and I love them. I love them so
Mhm.
much, and I just it's always like a little bittersweet falling in love with a series that's future is so unclear because it's like, well, are we ever going to get more of these? That's how I feel about F-Zero. But with Metroid we are, and that's super exciting. And yeah, I have no doubt this is going to be one of the best games of next year, and one of the best games probably on Switch. I think it's going to be awesome.
Agreed. Yeah, and honestly, to tug on something you said there real quick, I think one of the biggest issues with modern Metroidvanias, including the recent Prince of Persia, which I absolutely loved,
Love it.
they're too
Mhm.
long. Like, they just don't
Yeah.
you don't need to be 20, 25, 30 hours long. Like, I know, like, Hollow Knight fans are mad at me right now for saying that, but, like, some of the best GBA and DS Castlevania games are way tighter than that. The
Hmm.
Metroid 2D Metroid games you just talked about are way tighter than that. And, like, I don't think Metroid Prime Beyond needs to be 30, 40 hours or whatever. Like,
No.
give me something that's like 12, 15, maybe 17 to 100% or whatever to search every corner of it. And I know we've waited a long time for this game, so people think that that should automatically translate to like a longer game. And people get mad in general when I'm like, games should be shorter because games are expensive, and you should get your value and all that. But yeah, Metroidvanias, I think specifically, like, and a lot of the 2D ones kind of like lose their focus and lose their luster once they start hitting like the 15, 20 hour mark. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's my hope, is that this is like it's it's got freedom in it, and it's got creativity in it. It's got some wide linear areas, but it's also focused, and it's not just something that meanders on for 10 hours longer than it needs to.